with my endometriosis diagnosis the year before, I was feeling that way. And he was always reassuring me. He's like, Jamie, like, do not worry. Don't ever take blame for anything. Then when this diagnosis came, the roles were reversed in a sense. And I was like, do not worry. Don't ever take the blame for anything. So we literally had to be our rocks and support system in those hard moments. You're in it together and you like love each other through it. It's not anything to do with that. You have to support each other. And like for our journey, it brought us closer in so many different ways. We just wanted to be parents, like no matter how that was going to happen. That was like both of our goals. And once again, like this male factor, infertility, it wasn't like an end game to our journey. It was just another roadblock in our journey. We had to like kind of reassess and be like, okay, what's the next step?
You're listening to Breaking the Ice, a podcast and community created for wives and girlfriends of professional hockey players, but since has turned into so much more. Stories shared by women around the globe who come together for a sense of connection and community. You may be in the sports industry, a hockey parent, an athlete, or a person who just enjoys podcasts. But I can promise you, you'll be inspired by these women every single day, while we evolve through the tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts for all things hockey. And guess what? So much more. For women, by women, but especially for a hockey community. So lace them up and tune in for a new episode every Wednesday. Thanks for listening. The podcast is back in action. Guys, I had to take a much needed break. I honestly have been feeling in a January funk, was feeling pretty uninspired, and I just really needed to take some time off to just chill. But this conversation today just made me so excited to dive right back in because it reminds me of why I do this. It's to make these connections and just chat with amazing women in our hockey community. And I'm just like so grateful for this episode and just for all of the amazing women that I get to meet along this journey. So, I feel like I've talked to a lot of you guys and we're all kind of just in that January slow time where it feels like nothing's happening. And I feel like after talking to you, it seems like it's because like the holidays are over. If your family came out, they're gone now. And you just kind of feel blah. The weather's kind of shitty. And I feel like actually not really for us, but I remember like in previous years, this was always like the time of year where the guys were gone so much. And my husband's injured right now. Like he has a shoulder injury. So he's been out, which obviously I feel bad, but it's also kind of nice sometimes because then they can help out more if you have kids or dogs. So we've just kind of been in our routine and just, looking forward to all that's to come. I'm definitely excited for the summertime. And yeah, I feel like we're in kind of this is a contract year for us. So we don't really know what's going to happen next year. And my husband has to get shoulder surgery after the season, which is like a 6-month recovery. And so it's going to be an extra long summer for us. So we probably won't be starting the hockey season next year until September or October. So that's kind of a blessing in a way, just because I feel like it'll make up for some time that we are far away from family and whatnot. And I was actually just texted my sister yesterday and this idea just popped into my mind, but I was like, you know what? Because my whole family was supposed to come out for Christmas and they had to cancel their trip because of everything going on here in Austria. But I messaged her and was like, we should do a Christmas in July. I think it would be really fun to do just this big, Christmas dinner. We can exchange gifts or just like enjoy each other's company and just pretend like it's Christmas in July. And I'm pretty sure that's like a themed party. Like I've actually seen people having like house parties called Christmas in July and everybody's wearing like Christmas sweaters and stuff. So, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I feel like that'll make us happy. And yeah. So if you're kind of feeling like in that funk, I'm honestly right there with you. And feel like maybe I'm starting to come out of it a little bit. Like I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. The days feel really long, but now that I look at it, like it's already January 24th, which it's almost February, and then we probably just have a couple months left over here. So in this episode, I also talked about how I didn't know where we were going for the break, if we had one, but our break has now had games scheduled. So we are not getting our break any longer, which I completely anticipated, but I'm I'm kind of going back and forth whether I want to go somewhere by myself with my son. I like definitely have travel anxiety. Like I'm not as bold as some of you guys because just the actual traveling, like I'm really bad with directions. And I feel like when I don't understand like where I am or like the lay of the land, it like stresses me out. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, generally speaking, I think it would be fun to go with my son somewhere. But if anyone wants to meet up in a cool country, let me know because I would love to get out of Austria for a minute. So, anyways, today on the episode, I have Jamie on the podcast, and she opens up about her and her husband's journey with IVF. And I explain how Jamie and I started talking. It's kind of just like a funny, small world, and she is so sweet. We've been chatting for so long, and we just like, I feel like we're close friends. She's someone that I talk to a lot about just mom stuff. We kind of go back and forth because our kids are her second child, her second son is a week younger than my first son. And so they have a lot of similarities, and I've just loved getting to know her like over the past year, and it was time to have her on the podcast, and I'm so happy I did. She's seriously so sweet, and she just tells all of you guys and myself about what her journey to motherhood has looked like. And it was a very raw and real conversation. And I think that a lot of you guys will be able to relate to it. And, I often look at my I go on my, my hosting website for my podcast, and I kind of look and see like what people are wanting to hear about and what are the most downloaded episodes. And actually all of the fertility episodes are pretty much up there in the top 5 downloaded episodes, which makes me feel really good because I want this to be a conversation that people are having more often, because I don't want people to ever feel ashamed about speaking about this. And I feel like especially in our community, this goes on a lot more than we think. And we obviously have kind of a special circumstance with our lifestyle. And if you're going through these fertility struggles, it isn't just kind of like a typical like, oh, the shoe fits, we go and this works out just the way we want it. It's like you have to factor in hockey as well. So it's nice to have these women that have gone through these struggles share their experience and also share about, the happy outcomes of these experiences. So Jamie had gone through IVF in a different country, so in Europe, and had both of her children over in Europe. And so she just spills all the beans about that. She's an open book, and she is such a great support as a fellow mom, or if you are a mom to be and going through this journey yourself. She is definitely a great person to reach out to. So I will say no more. Listen to this episode. If you are listening today, share it to your story. Show Jamie some love and let us know where you're listening from.
Yeah, we just booked for Dubai.
Oh my God, that'll be so fun. You'll have to let me know how it is with kids going there. Like I've never had like a call to go there, but like just for some reason, like so many people go there here. I'm like, should we be going to Dubai? Like
Well, it's just always been on our bucket list, and we've been to like so many countries since we've lived here, and it's just never like been an opportunity. And might be the last Olympic break that we get before maybe Spencer retires or something. So we're like, we really need to take advantage of going, because once we're back in Canada, we're never gonna go. It's too far away.
Yeah.
So we're like, bit the bullet, and it's like pretty expensive, but it's one of those, yeah, but it's one of those things where you're like, you'll never regret going, but you'll always regret not going.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we're like, we had a chance, a chance to go when we lived in Dusseldorf, and we went to Portugal instead. And we're like, oh, dang, we should have gone before kids. It would have made way more sense.
Yeah.
So now that we have this long break, we're like, okay, now or never. And
Yeah.
so I think too, just when you got cooped up for the last 2 years, you're just like itching to do something, you know?
And some sun and some pool, and like it'll just
Yeah.
be nice to get like a change of just complete scenery.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you guys?
Well, I mean, we like our team hasn't had to reschedule a ton of games yet. Like I think it's been like one or two. So I know there's a lot of other teams in the league that have had to reschedule games. So I'm hoping we can still get a break. They haven't like told it. Like I can tell in the calendar when the break would be, but they haven't said you guys get this time off. But I'm hoping that it just still happens. So I'm kind of just like trying to stay super neutral until I hear like it's a go ahead, because I don't want yet another disappointment. You know what I mean? So
Totally. If anything, you could just maybe drive somewhere. You live in such a cool place that you have like a lot of things that are driving distance from where you live, right?
yeah, I know that's what everyone says, but I'm like for the longer breaks, I'm always like I want to like go big or go home. Like there's only two breaks in the year, you know, that you get like 4 to 5 days off, and I'm like I want to fly somewhere. So I think if we do get the time off, we are kind of wanting to do like a snow trip somewhere. So we might do like the French Alps or the Swiss Alps somewhere. Um
Cool.
yeah, so that's kind of like what we're thinking. There's just like so many places I want to see. Like Charlie wants to go back to the like the Dolomite Mountains in Italy, but we've already been there, and I'm like there's so many places to see. Like we can't just go keep going back. I love Italy, don't get me wrong, and that sounds so bougie to say like I don't want to go back to Italy, because I at some
No,
point
but
I would like to.
yeah, no, I'm the same way. I'm like, if I've been there, I want to do something different. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's like you only get so many breaks or whatever. But
Oh, I agree. I did this Kentucky tour when I was 19, and I went to like 15 countries in Europe.
oh
And
my god.
I hit like all the big cities. And so then when we moved here, my husband had never been before. And he was like, okay, so we got to do London, Paris, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I've already done those places. I want to
Yeah.
go like off the beaten path and do
Yes.
some like cool, interesting things. And so he's like, but I cannot live here, not have ever gone to Paris or to London or to like those places. So anyways, we're like slowly ticking off his box as well.
Yeah. Well, I feel like next year, if you guys play again, then you're probably going to be doing a Disneyland Paris trip, right?
Well, you know what? We did Paris in 2017, I think it was. And
Okay.
it was my second time going in his first. And for it was a one and done for him. So he's like, no, don't need to go back. And my sister actually lives in Huntington Beach, which is so like you're from California. It's so close to Disneyland, to
Yeah.
Anaheim. And so every time we go and see her, we could do Disneyland,
True.
California, which to me
It's
is
just as
like,
good,
yeah,
probably.
for sure. So that's my thought process. But maybe ask me next year. Maybe
Yeah.
my mind will change.
Yeah. Just you don't need to bring it up to your kids. They don't need to know that there's a Disneyland in Paris. Like,
No, no, still too young. So we're good.
yeah, exactly. Well, cheers. I'm holding
Yes.
my wine glass up. We can do a little
Yes, me
virtual
too.
cheers.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm looking
gosh.
at the cute family picture on my computer screen of you and your dogs and cute Crosby.
Oh, thank you. Well, okay. I feel like we have years of life to catch up on, because for everyone that's listening, we have talked over. So, okay, this is actually how I think this is how we started talking. I think we exchanged a couple messages, and then I looked at your profile and I saw that you recently had a baby too. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I started creeping you, like as we all do. And then I saw that he was born exactly a week before I had Crosby. And then I noticed that his name was Deacon. And so then I was like, okay, this is so funny, but you had your baby a week before me. Your son's name is Deacon. My dog's name is Deacon. And at the time that we got my dog, my husband and I were like obsessed with the show Nashville. So that's what he's named after. And then you told me you named your son after the show Nashville. And after that, the rest is history.
Seriously. And it's been like 1 year, oh no, over a year. It's almost 14 months now of just like back and forth baby talk. Talking nap schedules, feeding schedules. And I feel like we know each other. Like we should be having a coffee and having our boys have a play date.
Okay, well that we definitely need to do that at some point. But it's so I wish I had you through my pregnancy too, because we were quite literally like when was your due date?
So I was due on the 18th of November and I gave birth the 29th. So yeah, I was 11 days overdue with Deacon. Not fun. But yeah, they're born the same week. It's crazy.
Which
they're
is
like
so funny because I was a week early and I was due December 2nd and you had him after me.
So crazy, hey?
Well, so it's been like just so fun chatting with you over Instagram. And like you said, I just feel like I know you and it's just fun to like go back and forth and to see what your kids are doing and just chatting about like life things and mom things. And I'm just happy to finally talk to you in person and have a little virtual happy hour.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so looking forward to this.
Of course. Well, how did your bedtime go tonight?
Oh, you know what? We've been on this like routine. I don't know, like I know everybody's in this January funk right now where things have just like slowed down and whatnot. And we do an early dinner and then we do bath and then we watch the baby bums and they do like their whole little dancing to baby bums and then they brush their teeth and walk to their beds and they're both in their beds at 7 and we tag team. So my husband takes Leon, I take Deacon, and we're out by about 7:20, and then we have the night. So it's been really great. I mean, it's not always been that way, obviously, but I feel like just in these like winter months where there's nothing else going on, you kind of get in this really good routine, and that's where we are right now. So yeah, it's been good. Knock on wood. Yeah. It's always changing, right? It's always, I know you and I are talking about the transition from 2 naps to 1 nap, and we're both in that right now, and it's difficult, but once it's nailed down, brighter times ahead. So
you think you finally start to find your groove, like you're like, okay, I have this figured out, like we're like vibing, we have a good system, and then something happens. They get sick, they get teeth, they're no longer able to stay up for a 3-hour increment and now it has to be postponed and you're like, what's happening? And like it's like relearning like what they need. And it's always just like I feel like I'm definitely, and I know you are as well, but like with Deacon being your second, you kind of like knew this was coming, but it's like that transition of motherhood from like babyhood to toddlerhood. I'm like, is my baby still a baby? Is my baby a toddler? Like I'm not ready to like do either. Like, I don't know.
It's so true. I think what do they call them? Tabies, because they're not babies, but they're not toddlers. Oh, have you heard that term before?
No, Tabies? I haven't.
I think that's what it is. Someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's like that weird in between stage where everyone's just trying to figure it out. But it is getting easier, isn't it? Do you think? Yeah. Sure. You get to this point where it's like easy and then it's like easy, hard, easy. It's just a roller coaster. You just go with it. But I mean, you seem like such a pretty like relaxed mom. Like you just go with it. And I think just too living overseas with our families, all the travel, the time difference, the things that they have to get used to. We just have to kind of go with it, right?
For sure. And I think like all the transitions, it kind of reminds me to like loosen up a little bit with like, I don't know, like I definitely like schedules. Like you like schedules too, right? Like you have a system.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But it's like sometimes I feel like I get a little rigid about it, and like the transitions that happen within make me be like, okay, I need to just like step back and like intuitively, figure out what he needs, because like I don't like I feel like a lot of the time, the Instagram stuff like always is like one size fits all for being a mom and like baby, and every baby is so different.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. I know, like, I thankfully have two sisters who had kids before me, and I get a ton of advice from them. But same thing is every baby's different. But we had this conversation once where you look on social media and you are constantly in this game of comparison, and it's like it can get so unhealthy. Whereas, like, I remember my mom the one time was like, what do you think we did when you guys were little? Like, we had no idea how each other was like doing things unless we talked about it. And now you guys have like formulas and recipes for bedtime and eating and sleeping and this and that. And I was like, oh, and she's like, you guys all survived. We all made it. And there was like no pressure on us to be a certain way. So I definitely feel like in the past, I've put pressure on myself that, okay, this is the way it has to be. But
Exactly.
it's just this I don't know, modern day mom mothering that is, there's just a hard part about it when it comes to that. So I don't know, you just, at the end of the day, I think you just have to go with your gut.
Yes.
You know what's best for your baby and your family, and you just kind of go with it.
And the funny thing too about like when things start to get easier, that's when people are always like, I can see why people have more kids. Like it's like you forget about like all the challenging parts of like newborn stage and like everything. You're like, oh, you know what? Finding my groove. Like, why don't we just throw a wrench in it and like get everything like back to like crazy town? So your kids are obviously okay. Remind me of like the exact time apart they are, like 24 months.
23.
23 months. Okay.
Yes.
So let's like catch everybody up to date of like generally, and then obviously we're going to like dive into more of your story in depth, but just tell me a little bit about like where you guys were at before you started having children up until like where you had your kids, and their, anything you want to add into that, and then we'll kind of like dissect it.
Sure. So my husband and I have been together for 13 years, and we've been married for 8 this summer. And he had played 6 years in the American Hockey League before we came over to Germany. And we've been here for 8 years. And we actually came over to Germany the season after we got married. So our whole like married life has been overseas. So this is what we know. It's been fun, yes. But definitely has had its challenges. So yeah, we both knew that we wanted to have kids from the beginning. We both come from big families. I have 3 siblings. I have a brother and 2 sisters, and then Spencer has 4 brothers. So yeah, we had been trying for a while and nothing was like really happening. And it was kind of frustrating at the beginning, and then became a little bit worrisome. But what kind of got the ball rolling on everything was I started to develop this left lower quadrant pain, and it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it had nothing to do with my cycle. It had nothing to do with what I was eating. And it almost became like a debilitating pain where it was like 20 out of 30 days a month I was in pain. And this was going on for a few months. And Spencer had said to me, he's like, you need to go get that checked out. And I finally was like, okay, you're right, let's go. And so I ended up seeing an OBGYN. And at the time we were living in Berlin, and Germany in general has like really good healthcare, and Berlin is like next level. So I was super blessed to be where I was at the time. So I went to this appointment, and the doctor found a 3-centimeter tumor, which is what she called it. That word is like terrifying, and I hate using it, but that was the word she used when she found it. And she said, if this was a typical ovarian cyst, it usually goes away within 1 or 2 cycles. And because this pain has been going on for months, it has me a little bit worried. So we need to monitor it. If it's growing, then we know it's very concerning. It needs to come out. So
And sorry
I went
to interrupt you.
home.
So I
Yeah.
was totally okay. So this was in your ovary.
Yes, my left ovary.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So I went home
That
from
must
that
have been so
appointment.
painful.
It was very painful. And I just was like fixated on that word tumor. And I came home and I was like, Spencer, and I was just crying. I'm like, what if I have ovarian cancer? Like that's all I could think about, was that I like something major was wrong. Right. And so it was actually at the end of the season. So we went home for the summer, came back that next year and had another appointment, and it had grew to 5 centimeters. So my doctor was like, yes, this needs to come out right away. So 6 weeks later, I was scheduled for surgery, had surgery to remove that. And while it was like a longer than expected surgery. And afterwards, the doctor talked to me and they diagnosed me with stage 3 endometriosis, which I was actually quite familiar with because one of my really good friends that I had worked with had stage 4, and her and I were very close. And so I was familiar with endometriosis. And anyways, so it was a little bit terrifying having that surgery there, because I'm like, oh, is there going to be like something lost in translation? Am I going to wake up with no ovaries?
Oh
Like
my
all these
gosh.
things are going through your head that you're like, did we cover everything? It was like terrifying, and super painful recovery. So the doctor said that I actually had so much growth from the endo that the growth was like completely, almost completely blocking off my right ureter, which if I would have waited any longer, I would have gone into like kidney failure. So he was emphasizing how like important this was, how I got in while I did. So he also said that my appendix was inflamed. So I had to schedule a new surgery to remove my appendix 2 months
my
later.
gosh.
So that entire year I felt like was kind of a write-off, because it was just 2 surgeries. I was healing. It was just like a lot. And it didn't really even like fix the pain that I was having. It was just like frustrating altogether. I had so many doctor's appointments. I saw so many specialists. I had so many tests, and like really nothing really ever came out of it. So, anyways, that next year we
Can I ask you a
were in.
question?
Yeah,
So
of course.
when they were doing all of this, did they say anything about the chances of you conceiving? Like, was that something that you were worried about, or did they kind of assure you like, once we remove this, we think, you're gonna be able to
Yeah, so
conceive?
my doctor at the time said, as soon as you have the laparoscopy to remove the endometriosis, that's when you have like the greatest chance of conceiving, is right after your surgery, and everything's kind of cleaned out. And she kept reassuring me that like now that I had the surgery, that it shouldn't be a problem. Like obviously with endometriosis, like there are definitely fertility problems that people have, but it doesn't mean that you cannot get pregnant when you have endometriosis. So I knew obviously it wasn't like helping my chances, but at the same time, I knew it wasn't like a dead end for me, if you know what I mean. Like I was just trying to stay like hopeful and whatnot. And then with the pain that I was having, my doctor was like, you either have to get pregnant or be on permanent birth control. That's the only thing that's going to, or have a hysterectomy, which obviously I'm not going to do. That's the only thing that's going to kind of be pain control for you. And being on birth control wasn't an option. And so I was just like, this is something I'm just going to have to live with. And that's what I did. And that next year we kept trying, and like nothing was happening. And it just came to a point where it was like literally affecting my day-to-day life. Like it was all I thought about. And I knew at that point, I'm like, I need to take things into my own hands if I want something to be done. So I researched a clinic. Thankfully, we were living in like one of the best cities in Germany at the time. I called, immediately got hung up on because my German is terrible. And the people on the other end did not speak a word of English. And so I don't know about your experience, but whenever these phone calls are made and they can't seem like communicate with you, they just hang up.
Oh,
Like,
100%.
it's
Like,
happened to me so many times.
That's us like trying to get the baby money for like Crosby. Like we're like, hi, do you speak English? Like 9, hang up. We're like, sweet.
Yes, exactly. So this was my like first experience with it, was something that I'm like is like such a big, obviously like such a big deal to me. And the first thing that happens is I get hung up on, and I'm like, okay, deep breath, Jamie, deep breath.
Right.
You can do
Because that's
this.
the last thing you want. Like on top of everything you're going through, you're probably hanging on by a thread. And then just like the communication barrier, it's like, no, like I can't deal with this on top of everything else.
Exactly. And I think it just put into perspective me living overseas and how complicated this was going to be. Like if I were back home, I would be in a familiar place with speaking English, like not having communication issues. Like it would just be so much more comfortable. And I knew that just wasn't an option. We're home 3 months out of the year. Like if I want this to be done, I had to do it in Germany. Like I could not have done it in Canada. Like it wouldn't have been possible. Because obviously you need both of you to be there. You can't just do it by yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I called back again and I got hung up on again. And at this point, I just like started to cry. I was like devastated. It was like frustrating. It just added another element of complication to everything. And I just really had to sit down and remind myself why I was doing this. And so I'm like, okay, Jamie, what's the like best way to get a hold of someone without having to call them in this day and age? And I'm like, okay, I'll try to email them. So get on my Google Translate and send an email. And thankfully, the next day I got an email back and I got an appointment time. Super thankful. Went to this appointment with my husband and met with our doctor, who was amazing. She answered all of our questions. And then we booked testing after that. And we just went right into it. So we did testing, blood work, like everything that comes with it. And everything was like perfectly fine on both ends. So she gave us the A-OK to like start our round of IVF. And so we went ahead and started it with like the medication and the injections and all that fun stuff that comes with it. So we did that. And after we were done doing our like hormones and our medication, then we went ahead with our first egg retrieval. And with our egg retrieval, we ended up getting 11 eggs on the first one, which was okay. Like in my doctor's opinion, at like for my age at the time, she's like, okay, 11's okay. It's not awesome. It's not bad. It's just okay. So it's like, okay, we're good with that. And then after that happens, what you have to do is you have to wait till the next day for them to tell you how many of those eggs get fertilized. So the next 24 hours are like crazy intense because you have no idea what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. You're just like sitting and waiting for like a phone call.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. Like not sleeping, obviously.
Right.
Like it's just like so many emotions that go into it. And we like got that phone call, and thankfully Spencer was home and with me. And our doctor just told us, like, I don't have the greatest news for you guys. We were only able to fertilize one of the eggs out of the 11. And we were like shocked. We're like, okay. And she said, to put that into context, usually fertilization rate is about an 80%, and yours is like less than 10. And at that point, we were like, oh my gosh, like it was like a whole new world for us. And they had diagnosed us at that point with the, after she told us about what had happened, she had diagnosed us with the male factor infertility, which was like super, super emotional. Like up until this point, we were like, okay, we're good, we're strong, like whatever comes up, we're going to be able to get through it. And that just like completely threw like a curveball and everything. And I've never seen my husband that emotional as I did that day. Like he just broke down and we just like embraced each other. It was like the most raw moment I think that we've ever had together. It was hard. It was definitely, it was a day, like I said, that I'll never forget. But through everything we knew, like we were in it together, no matter what had happened, no matter what came up, no matter what our diagnosis was, no matter anything, like we were in it together. And so we just kept that mindset.
It's making me emotional, like listening to you say that. What did you say that they diagnosed you with?
The male factor infertility.
Okay, so it was him.
So basically, how they described it to us was so with IVF, they try to keep the fertilization as natural as possible in the sense where they put the sperm in the petri dish with the egg and let the strongest, so to speak, do the fertilization, and they let it happen naturally. With us, when they did that process, it was almost like they just kind of swam around it. Like my husband will now joke that like they were drunk. They like didn't know what they were doing. So they like went the other direction, if you know what I mean. So it was something that we never even like thought of, because I think a lot of people don't know this or realize this either, that when you are going through treatment and when you're doing all this testing, that when they do a semen analysis, they're like, oh, good motility and good numbers, you're good to go, which was the case every single time for us. But you don't actually know until you like physically see what it does under a microscope and how it responds to an egg. That's how you like truly know. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't diagnose that any other way but physically looking at it.
So it wasn't that his sperm was not like quality sperm. It's just that there was like some sort of disconnect with the sperm meeting the egg, how it essentially would 89% or whatever the percentage was at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It was like it didn't like the egg, so it swam around it.
Okay. And I'm sure as like your husband's perspective too, like that was probably like, obviously I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I can only imagine how he would feel like as a man, like just feeling like it was his fault, even though obviously like he has no control over that, like nothing he could have done could, essentially help the situation. But like you kind of feel like what's wrong with me that I can't do this?
100%. And I, like with my endometriosis diagnosis the year before, I was feeling that way. And he was always reassuring me. He's like, Jamie, like do not worry, don't ever take blame for anything. Like, and then when this diagnosis came, it was like the roles were reversed in a sense. And I was like, do not worry, don't ever take the blame for anything. So we literally had to be our rocks and support system in those hard moments where it should never be like anybody's fault, so to speak, because you're in it together and you like love each other through it. It's not anything to do with that. You have to support each other. And like I mean, I don't know, like for our journey, it brought us closer in so many different ways. Like I can see in other people's journey, if they don't have that strong connection with each other, if like people do played the blame game, which is so wrong on so many levels that like, how do you get through that? Like, you can't do that ever.
Right.
So for us, like, no matter what, like, we were there for each other, and like, we just wanted to be parents, like, no matter how that was going to happen. That was like both of our goals. And once again, like, this male factor, infertility, it wasn't like an end game to our journey. It was just another roadblock in our journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think then we had to like kind of reassess and be like, okay, what's the next step? And our doctor had said to us, like, you guys, all you need is one. You just need one. And we have one. So we're going to go ahead with it. And we're like, okay, you're right. Like, let's stay positive. And so we went ahead with that one embryo, and we did a fresh transfer. And I think at that point, when you do your first embryo transfer, you're almost like, okay, now it's in me. Now I'm good. Now I'm pregnant. Now I'm going to have a baby. Like, you kind of are naive, so to speak. Well, just I kind of was in a way. I was like, okay, awesome. Like, going to have a baby in July. Like, it's not ideal for the hockey season, but we'll make it work. Like, all good to go. And then when we did the test 2 weeks later and it came back negative, that's when our complete rock bottom hit, because not only now was I like, I can't get pregnant, but now I can't hold a pregnancy. So I came to this like dark place where I thought that my body could not carry a child. And it was like the hardest point in my journey to picture myself not as a mom. And it was so hard to get out of. You think as a woman what your job is. It's your job to have babies. I wanted to give my husband babies, and I wanted him to be a dad. And the realization that that might not happen, it was like my sole purpose in life, I felt like. And I cannot, the devastation that came along with it, I was in like a really dark place at that time. And around the same time that that had happened, we had 3 siblings, and our best friend announced their pregnancy to us. And not taking away from my nieces and nephews, because they're like the most amazing things ever, and I absolutely love them. And our best friend's son is now my older son Leon's best friend. So it's beautiful how everything works out. But in the moment, it was so hard. You really think like, why me? Like, why is everyone else getting pregnant? Why is everyone else having babies? Like, I think we had been married for like 4 years at this time, or 3 years or something. And I'm like, how is this happening? And I went into, like I said, this downward spiral that I couldn't get out of. In that entire year, I was like, it was a blur. I wasn't myself. I was just like living in this different world. I was just in this like bad space. And my husband had to really help me get out of it, and really help me stay positive, and just like encouraging, and like change my mentality. And we really relied on our faith to get us through. Like, we just kept saying like, all in God's timing, God's plan, and God knows the desires for us to be parents. And we really just held on to that, and just like continued to pray that that would happen for us. And I like I said, I had to change my mentality to, okay, maybe I can't get pregnant, but I'm going to be a mom. So whether that be an egg donor or a surrogate, or we do adoption, like I am determined I will be a mom somehow. And I think that that's what really like helped me. All of those things, just like my faith and my mentality. And I said to myself, and I said to Spencer, because we had these hard conversations, I said, my path to motherhood might be different. Our path to parenthood might be different than what we had thought, but we will be parents, like one way or another. And I just kind of like held on to that, moving forward. And I was determined not to give up. I'm like, I'm not going to give up after one time. Like, we're going to do this again. We're going to do it again until literally the door closes on us. And we know that we need to move on from this. So,
well, I think like, you say like this one time, but also you have to remember everything else that you went through before that even one time happened. It's like you had the surgeries, you had like the health issues and like having to go through all of that. And it's like that was like a long, hard year for you, obviously. And then like you finally have like a bit of hope that you have, all it takes is one. And then like to have that disappointment. And it makes me so sad because like I hope you know that you are like such a light and you're just like you have just such a positive like aura about you. And so it just makes me sad to hear that you were in such a heavy, dark place because that's really hard when you're in that kind of like headspace and just, to get out of that. And I think it's so important and like so special and obviously has made your bond so strong with your husband too. But and also I want to say like, thank you for sharing that element about like your family and your friend getting pregnant, because I think that with women, there's a lot of like with women that are struggling with fertility, there's a lot of guilt about feeling that way when you see other people getting pregnant, whether that's people in your life, people on social media, and you want to be like happy for these people. And of course you are, like, I'm sure you would never wish what you were going through on anyone, but like you're still allowed to have those feelings when you see, especially when it's people so close to you. So I'm happy that you share that because I think people that also have been going through this will completely relate to that. I'm sure it is so hard to see that because I feel like every time I'm on Instagram, I'm seeing another pregnancy announcement.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Thank you for that. It wasn't the most proud moment I have had in the past. And to feel those ways that I felt. But in saying that, like part of that was I feel a little bit responsibility in the sense that at the beginning, we did not share our journey with very many people. And I don't know if this is a common thing with people with newly diagnosed infertility, but it's almost like it's an embarrassment, or obviously it's something you're not very proud of. Another thing is you hate people always asking you, like, when are you going to have kids? When's the baby's coming? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just like, oh, if only they knew we had been trying for 2 years, but thanks. And you don't want to get into it with random people about that. Right. But I just like, we decided to keep it to ourselves for the most part. It was just like constantly bad news, like one bad thing after the other that was happening to us. And I'm like, I'm sick of like telling our family members bad news. Like, it's just like, I want to be able to share good news with them. And the good news wasn't coming. And it was just like, it was hard. I did tell my sisters, definitely, like, I got to that point where I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this like by myself. I need to be able to share. And
You guys really just like keeping it between the two of you?
We were, plus our hockey family in Dusseldorf knew about it too, because I mean, you know what it's like when you have like a hockey family, you see them almost every day. And there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to keep that a secret from them. And I met my angel friend in Dusseldorf that helped me so much that year. And she took care of me after my second egg retrieval. And she was just such a shining light in my life that year. My friend Amanda, hi Amanda, if you listen. And she was just, we're still such good friends to this day. And you need that one person where you can cry to and who can give you a hug and can vent to about it. So like my friends in Dusseldorf knew more than others. But initially it was just us. And I had two friends that I talked to all the time because they had gone through it. The one girl, the previous year, she had done it in Munich. And then another girl was just a friend of my sister's that I knew that went through it. And it was so important for me to like get their advice. And they kind of held my hand, so to speak, through the process. I just thought that was like, I couldn't have done it without those two girls 100%. And the one girl that did it in Germany, we still talk to this day, and I've never met her in person before, and we're such good friends. Her husband's now retired now, but we always joke, we're like, we are just like the best friends that I've never met in person before. But it's just this like common thing that you share with someone that really bonds you to them. Mm-hmm. So those two girls definitely. And then, like I said, my family in Dusseldorf, my older sister had a little bit of trouble with her first as well. And so I felt like she was like an easy person to talk to. So in the later stages, we did talk more about it with her. But like I said, it was my fault with the other people, not letting them know what was going on. So they had no idea our side of the story.
I mean, I want to like cut you off because like, yeah, it's not your fault, because that's a very personal thing. And that's like completely like your choice, and it's your private life. And, you know, some people are very like, you know, some people like to share, and some people like, it's more, they want to keep it private. And I can completely understand why you wouldn't want to have to like over explain to everyone, because you're already dealing with this internally. You know what I mean? Like you're sitting at home, this is consuming you because you want this so bad. And so like, sometimes I feel like to have to like keep, you know, going, like you're just going out to hang out with someone, or, you know, catching up with someone on the phone from back home, like you don't want to have to talk about it with them too. So I can see why you would want to kind of keep that more private, and obviously hoping for, you know, a positive outcome at some point, so that it doesn't have to feel so heavy all the time.
For sure. And I was at the point where I didn't know if it would ever be positive news. And once it did become positive news, I just wanted to talk about it more. Yeah, little Leon, sweet angel baby. I always say he's born from a golden egg, that boy. Literally a golden egg. A very expensive rounds? Golden egg.
Yeah. Little price tag, but yeah, we got here.
Yeah, totally, so, right?
How many rounds did you have to do to when you finally got pregnant with Leon?
Yeah, so we couldn't start our second round in December because the clinic is closed for Christmas. It's closed for 2 weeks at Christmas. And, you know, this procedure is like super time sensitive. So they said, okay, we're not doing anything in December. Let's start again in January. So I literally had to start from the very beginning again because I had no more embryos left. We had nothing. So they increased my medication to produce more eggs. And this time I got 22, which they were a lot happier with.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But with the increased medication, then my side effects of it increased. And what ended up happening is my ovaries were hyperstimulated. And when that happens, they can't do a fresh transfer because they have to kind of let your ovaries rest before they do a transfer. So they're like, we have to do a frozen transfer. And then they also said that, previous to the transfer, they were changing up the way they did the fertilization because our fertilization rate was so poor. We did what's called ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection. So what they do is they actually manually pick up the sperm with a needle and they like force fertilization into the egg, which a lot of people don't know about that process, that is like a thing that people do with
Interesting.
IVF.
I'm literally
And
like visualizing this right now in my
yeah,
head.
yeah. And it was the path that we went down, and
Okay.
our doctor said, like, I just have to let you know that when we do it this way, you have an increased risk for abnormalities with or birth defects,
Oh my
because
God.
it's not um, the strongest the strongest wins, so to speak. Like, it's not like the um like, when it's naturally, it's like the healthy strong one that wins
Right.
to
The
the egg.
strongest sperm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but this way, when they pick, they don't know what they're picking.
Okay.
So she's like, you need to be aware of that. And we're like,
Gosh, that's
of course.
stressful.
It was super stressful. Like, at the time, I was like, we were both like, of course, like, no problem. We would just be like beyond blessed to even like have a baby. And whatever baby like God chose to give us, like, we will take that baby however it is made. And so, like, that didn't like cause an issue. It was like during pregnancy that I thought more about it. But anyways, that was just like a little side thing of it, and we're like, okay, let's go ahead and do it this way. So I gave my ovaries a rest and waited for my February cycle so I could do the transfer. And I never got a cycle in February. And obviously, like, the season's over March usually, and we weren't making playoffs that year. So this was like, again, very time sensitive. I'm like, what is happening? And ironically, that was the February of the Olympics. And my brother-in-law was playing for Team USA in hockey, and my sister had two small kids, and she wanted to like bring me to South Korea as her like nanny. And I was like so excited and pumped. And then this came up. I was like, okay, maybe not. Like, obviously having a baby is a little bit more important than the Olympics, but then I never got a cycle in February. So I'm like, what the heck? Like, it was just crazy how things worked out. I felt like that was a missed opportunity, but then like I couldn't because of this. And then March came, and so my cycle came in March, and the season was over, and here I was still in Germany, doing this. And usually, like, my husband and I are like, can't wait to get home. Like, we love being at home in the summer.
Yeah, like first
But
flight out you can get.
yeah, really. And so here we were, and they did the frozen transfer, and we decided at that point to transfer two embryos. Sorry, from the I forgot to say, from the 22. They fertilized 6 of the 22, so I got 6
Oh
embryos.
my gosh, okay, which is
So
such a relief after the first time too, I'm sure. Like, okay,
yeah, yeah,
this is
yeah.
better
So
odds.
yeah, for sure. So we had 6. And we didn't do any genetic testing on any of them because, like I said, we're like, we just, whatever we're given, we're going to be happy with. So we transferred 2, and I had like envisioned having twins. I was like
Oh my
so
gosh, right.
excited
Okay,
for
wait,
the,
sorry. Okay, so then if you
yeah,
transfer two, then like
yeah,
while you're like they do it. Wait, okay, hold on. So this might be a stupid question, but when they
no.
transfer, is it when you're ovulating?
So no, so what you do is you take medication to prepare your uterus for the home for your future baby, for the
Okay.
embryo. So once your period comes, you start taking medication to build your endometrium, like the wall in your uterus, to get nice and like thick for implantation of the embryo. So once it's like a certain thickness and the doctor's like satisfied with the way it looks, they time it on a certain day after your period starts when the wall's thick, and then they do the transfer.
Okay.
So it's like very
So
time sensitive, and like you do ultrasounds during that time to make sure everything's great and ready to go. So it's like a little nerve wracking because there are things that can go wrong, but everything was like good and fine. And Yeah.
And when you put
So,
two in, it
mhm.
obviously like you could wind up with twins.
Or triplets or quads.
Oh, what could you, sorry, but could you imagine having four or three?
No.
Like
And
twins, like, okay, you could like get used to after the shock factor sets in, but like four?
I know. So because they can, each one can split. So there's actually like a more, like a better chance of having like triplets because one of them can split into two.
Oh my
So like these are all the
gosh.
things like they warn you about before. But the particular clinic that we went to, they don't do more than two. Like I know, like I've heard some like crazy, and obviously you see the movies and whatever, like clinics in the States like that do like I don't even know how many they do or
Oh
what's
my
legal.
gosh. And
But
could you imagine now after like having kids and having one newborn, having like even two, like even the thought of two, like obviously
well,
such a blessing, but like, oh my God, like one is
and
hard enough.
I thought if I'm gonna do it, I want to do it at the beginning so I don't know any better, right? Like
Yeah,
if I have
exactly.
twins, just do it right away because then you don't know the difference.
Yeah.
And I had this like I had my stroller picked out for twins, like I was like manifesting it, right? I was like praying that this would be like our family. I was like so excited, and they did the two. And then after the transfer, my doctor were like meeting with her, and she was like, I really suggest that you don't fly in the first trimester. And we were like, what? Like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, we advise that you don't fly overseas in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. I'm like, pardon?
Why?
Like, why? And she's like, well, there's no like proven reason to why. We don't know if it's like the radiation or blah blah blah. And she was saying all these things, and she's like, but like it's been known that it increases your chances of a miscarriage. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just went through like a year, literally a
Oh,
year of this, and now like we've already stayed 3 extra weeks at this point. Like I'm not staying for the summer. I can't. I said,
no.
Spencer, for my mental health, like I can't do it. I have to go home. And he's like, no, I agree with you. So we
And
made the
also like
decision.
to like make a statement based on like no factual, like it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like to say like you can't, like she said, like, well, there's no really real reason, but it's like that's kind of like a big scare, like for everything we're
Yeah.
going through right now to like throw that in after, like maybe like you should have told us before, considering like like we're going home.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. And so we like went home, and I literally didn't do anything. I like sat on the couch with my feet up, had my warm socks, kept my uterus warm, ate so much pomegranate and drank pomegranate juice, and read all these myths about how to like keep like eat warm food and keep your uterus warm and keep your feet warm. Like it was just like I was literally diving into like Google trying to figure out like how to make this stick because I was like so determined more than anything. So I said to Spencer, I'm like, we're going to go home and I'm going to just pretend that I'm pregnant. And I'm just going to like, I'm not going to carry a bag. I'm going to drink lots of water. I'm going to wear my compression stockings. Like, I literally am going to have in my head that I am pregnant. And so we decided to go home, and like, so randomly, while we're sitting in the airport on our first flight, they upgrade us to like premium economy for our long haul flight. And I was like, oh, what just happened? Like, is this a sign? Like, it was amazing. You got these lazy boy chairs. I could not have been more comfortable. It was just like so wonderful. And we went back home. Um, had to wait like one more week, which was like the longest week of my life, did the pregnancy test, and it was positive, which was like
The best news ever.
insane because it was like everything that we had hoped and prayed for, but like you never know when that's going to come true, or if it will come true. So now I'm like just got home, and I have to like hide from everyone the secret, right? Which is like the hardest thing ever. So that was challenging to do that. but I made a doctor's appointment because now it's like, okay, we transferred two. How many babies are in there? And so we did it was like a 6 or 7 week ultrasound. I want to say it was closer to 7 weeks that we did our first ultrasound. And sure enough, there were two heartbeats. And we were like over the moon excited. Like it was like so emotional. It was like so an answer to prayer. Like it was just amazing. So we left that appointment feeling super good. And like with twin pregnancies, you're monitored like extra. And I was like so grateful to like spend my first 20 weeks in Canada with my like OBGYN that I'm familiar with. In like a place that I'm familiar with, so I can get all my questions answered. And they were doing like extra ultrasounds, extra blood work, like extra appointments. Like I was just getting everything that I needed. So I had a repeat ultrasound around 10 weeks, and our ultrasound tech was doing everything. I don't know how, obviously in Germany, you get ultrasounds done at every appointment by your doctor. But in Canada, or at least the city that I live in, you go to like a radiology center, and an ultrasound tech does your ultrasounds, and then they give the report to your OBGYN, and then you have to wait for an appointment with your doctor before you know what's going on. Like you never know like right then and there what's happening. So it's like, it's so frustrating. I hate it. I hate how they do it, but that's the way it is. So anyways, he's like, I'll be right back. And he just left the room, and I looked at Spencer and I was like, what the heck was that about? And he's like, I don't know. And his heart was pounding, and he didn't want to say anything, but he
was like
he did know he was worried. Yeah. So the guy comes back, and he's like, this is Dr. So-and-so. He just wants to talk to you. And we're like, what? And then he let us know. So they were referring to our twins as twin A and twin B. And he's like, I have some bad news for you. There's no longer like life supporting twin B, and you lost that twin. And I was like, what? And like my heart sank. It was like, it was just like another element to this whole journey that I didn't expect, and another down that I wasn't prepared for, and I didn't know how to handle. And he's like, but good news, please focus on the good news. Twin A is perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, and you have a healthy pregnancy. And I was just shattered. And at that point, like everyone knew, because we had told people fairly early in our family that we were pregnant. And so we went home and digested the news, cried a lot. It was like devastating.
Well, because when you find out you're pregnant, you're usually like, I mean, I found out when I was pregnant at 3.5 weeks. And then it's like for you, it's like you find out you're pregnant with twins. And then you're like carrying this news, expectation, thought that you're having twins. And you're like, you've adjusted to that. That's what you know that you're having. So then to hear that, it's like you have to go through another like loss, essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I was already like such a paranoid pregnant person as it is, just because of what we had been through, that every little like tweak and feeling, I was like, my heart started racing, and I was like panicking about. And I met with my doctor, and I'm like, what's happening now? And my doctor's like, well, we don't really know. It depends on how your body's going to handle this. Either you're going to like miscarry the other baby and have a full miscarriage, or the placenta will just absorb the other baby. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's and he's like, I'm going to put you on extra progesterone medication to help calm down your uterus. But really, we just have to wait. And
they were kind of implying that you were going to lose the other baby.
He literally said he had absolutely no idea what was going to happen, because everyone's body reacts to it differently depending on your body. And he's like, you could miscarry the healthy baby, or your body could absorb the baby you lost into the placenta. And
Like
I'm
they
like,
call that like the vanishing twin, right?
yeah, right.
Okay.
So it was just a lot of emotions. And I lived in fear for the next 10 weeks. Like I didn't do anything. Like I literally did not move a muscle. And I shouldn't say I didn't move a muscle. I went on walks, and I just had this different mentality than probably a lot of normal pregnant people did, because I was literally living in fear.
Like
I was
rightfully
so
so because of
scared.
everything you went through. Like I think the majority of people that's like listening or have gone through it, like they would say the same. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And I just I'm a pretty active person, and I wasn't like working out or anything like that. Obviously I was eating really healthy, but my husband kept telling me, he's like, you have to be positive. You have to be positive for baby A. You have to because they that baby can feel what you're feeling. Like you have to stay strong for that baby. And I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, you're right. Like I need to stay strong for this baby. I need to keep positive. Like I'm going through a miscarriage, but I need to be positive at the same time. Like it was the weirdest feeling like I've ever had to go through or explain. I don't know anyone that had gone through that. And I just had to kind of take it day by day. And I, on our trip back to Germany, I was 20 weeks, and I felt, we had found out we were having a boy, and I felt him kick on the airplane for the first time. And I just instantly started to cry, and I was like, that was 100% a kick. That was not anything else. And it was just he was trying to tell me, I'm here, I'm okay, don't worry about me. And it was just a really at that point on, I just felt good. I don't know. I don't know about you in your pregnancy. Did you have this feeling of relief once you start feeling um you felt him move? Were you
oh,
like, okay, I'm good. I'm
absolutely.
good
And
now?
I would say
Yeah.
like it's hear what you're saying too, because I think even if you've had, you know, uncomplicated journey to pregnancy, like you still fear that miscarriage and going through that, or something going wrong, or the baby not being okay. It's like the second you become a mom, like this, meaning the second you see a positive pregnancy test, like you're a mom. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Regardless of the
Yeah,
outcome, you are a
exactly.
mom. And it's like
Mhm.
your biggest fear is potentially something going wrong. And so for me, when I'm thinking about people that have struggled with fertility, people that have gone through miscarriages, people that have had, struggles getting pregnant, or thinking about how much, like worrying about all the same stuff like you're worrying about, amplified times 5,000 for you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because
right.
it's like these are thoughts that go through everyone's mind, but like how much more intense it is when you're your whole world has been focusing on making this babies, and the further you get along, then you kind of relax a little bit more, I guess. But I mean, the feeling never goes away. And even after you have a kid, you could probably relate. Like you're always worried.
For sure, for sure. And I remember having this conversation with one of my really good friends. And she said, I get more anxious with newborns. Like once the baby's born, that's when I become anxious. When I'm
Mhm.
pregnant, I'm totally fine. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the complete opposite. Like when I'm pregnant, I am anxious. It's so
Mhm.
scary to me. I
Mhm.
love being pregnant. I love every day and every minute of it. But it's interesting, certain people's view on when their own fears come into play. And I mean, that was definitely something I learned and didn't anticipate, and had to kind of didn't anticipate to that extent, because it literally consumed every day. Where I just had to calm down and be like, okay, trust in God, Jamie, it's gonna work out, you're gonna be
Mhm.
fine, this is fine. And I really had to just let go and just like I said, rely on my faith to get me through, and it really did. So yeah, and thankfully my last 20 weeks of my pregnancy, was in Germany, which is such a blessing. For anyone that didn't know, like, you get, at least with my pregnancies, you get an ultrasound done, or any of the girls that have been pregnant where I've lived, like, you get an ultrasound every single appointment in
Yes.
your doctor's
Yes.
office.
I will
Like, it
say
is
that. That's amazing.
amazing. Yes, right. Back home, I know like some girls that get one ultrasound at 20 weeks for the anatomy scan, and where I live, you get a dating ultrasound at the beginning, and then you get a 20-week scan, so you get two, and then maybe at the very end you'll get one more if the doctor's not sure if your baby's breech or not and needs to know positioning, but like that's max. And like here, I think for Leon, my first pregnancy, like, I swear I had like 20 ultrasounds for sure.
You're like,
Like,
can you just do one more?
I should have count. Yeah.
Just one
It
more.
was like it was like so reassuring. I'm like
I'm
beyond
sure.
thankful that I had that opportunity. And even like when I ended up being overdue with him, and that period between like when you give birth and your due date, they like check you every other day. They're like measuring the fluid inside of you to make sure it hasn't like decreased. They're looking at like the cord and the oxygen flow and the blood flow. Like, they're doing extensive looking at when you go overdue to make sure everything is fine. And like, that never happens back home. So just another thing I was like super grateful for being here. So
Yeah. So your kids are obviously 23 months apart. So you had
yeah.
Leon, an
Yeah.
angel baby, and then
Yeah.
you guys, I'm sure, I feel like every person like has this idea in their head of like, okay, like what do we want like our family to look like? Do we want our kids close in age? Do we want them further apart? And I know obviously like your journey is different because you have to play into a factor of everything you had to go through and probably consider like, do we need to go through this again to conceive?
Yes.
So
Right.
then when it came time to like, deciding if you guys were wanting another baby soon, did you guys have to go through IVF again for Deacon? And how long did that take?
Yeah. So, well, after my birth with Leon, it was like I was not ready to have babies anytime soon.
Oh no.
I had like an overdue induced. I labored 60 hours. It
Oh
was
my
like
Lord.
very like it was a little bit traumatic. And I remember talking to my mom after, me like, how did you do that 4 times? Like, no. and and you don't really forget. I don't know, maybe some people that had great births do, but I don't know how people forget that. So I
No.
was good to wait a little bit. And then it was like, I would say right after kind of he turned 1, I was like kind of thinking about it, because I thought in a perfect world 2 years would be like, or in between 2 and 3 years would be like awesome. And I think it with the time, like, he turned 1 in December, and then I was traveling so much with him that year. This is like pre-COVID year, so I had like my brother was playing in Switzerland at the time. So like I was in Switzerland in November, and then he was in the Spangler Cup in December. And so I went with Leon to the Spangler Cup. And then my other sister was living in Sweden at the time. So I went to go visit her in January in Sweden. And like I was doing all these trips solo with Leon, and I was having so much fun. And he was in that stage that our boys are in right now, the Crosby and Deacon, and I was just loving it. I'm like, this is so great, like so much fun. This is so easy. Like, I'm visiting my family members and doing all of this. And then I was like, throw it, like we talked about earlier, throw in a curveball and to the like perfect world of
things. We're getting used to this. You know what? Let's have another newborn.
exactly. But it was more of the like logistics of everything, how we had 4 frozen embryos in Dusseldorf. And
oh my gosh, that's right. Okay, because they can live a long time, obviously. Like, how long can they live for?
Well, I don't know exactly, so I don't want to say, but I feel like I've like read articles where there have been embryos frozen for like 20 years.
Shut up.
20
years?
Yeah, maybe Google it. Maybe there's people listening that are going to laugh at me for saying that.
Literally, but like, could you imagine, like, if you had like a daughter, like they could carry your embryo?
Hey, you know what's really weird though, now that we have 2, and I can say this, is like essentially Deacon and Leon came from the same batch. So they could have been twins. Deacon could have been older than Leon. Or they, what was the other crazy thing I was thinking about the one time? Well, essentially they're like the same age, but Deacon was like frozen for a year and a bit. Isn't that weird to think about?
So weird. And I think it's even like kind of cooler that Leon was supposed to be a twin and Deacon came from the same batch. I don't know, just
yes. You know what? I have thought about that a few times too. Definitely, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's very special how things work out. But anyway, so we had 4. We had 4 in Dusseldorf, and right now where we're living is 3.5 hours away, and so it's driving distance, like totally doable. And I brought it up with Spencer, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I think like if we're gonna do it, like we should do it before the end of the season, because then like we don't know where we're gonna be next year. At that point we didn't have a contract to come back, so I'm like, we could be in like Austria for all we know, and then we have to fly to Dusseldorf. Like it's just so inconvenient. Like, and I'm like, this way they'll be like 2 years apart, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, totally. Like, I agree. And so I contacted the clinic by email. I learned my lesson, emailed the clinic. Yeah, exactly. And it was like actually a pretty like smooth, straightforward, like directions that they had given me. And I had contacted my doctor here, and we just like, my 2 doctors are in communication with each other. And so the testing that they wanted done, I was able to get it done here, like pre-transfer, because now you think about it, I can skip the first step of the egg retrieval. Like that's the hardest part, right? So thankfully I didn't have to do that. It was just like the embryo transfer that I had to do. So I prepared for that, which is also super time sensitive. Thankfully, like, it fell on one of my husband's days off. Like his one day off a week was when this transfer was going to happen. So it was perfect. So we went the day before, we stayed the night in Dusseldorf. It was really cool to be there with Leon because that's where he was like made essentially. And we were back, and we went ahead with it. And at that point we decided to transfer 2 again. Just because I was like, might as well, like, I totally can do this. I know it's going to be like hard if we have twins, but I just want the babies. Like, let's do it. And also you increase your chances, right, by doing 2. And so we decided to do 2. And that was in February. And we waited the 2 weeks, which was like I said, like the longest 2 weeks ever, and did the test and got a negative result. So that was like super devastating. And I just like mourned, and I shook it off, and I grieved, and I'm like, Spencer, let's do it again next month. And he was like, whoa, what? Like, do you not just want to like maybe like wait. And I was like, nope, I want to do it again. And I think because of my experience the first time, I was just like so determined. I had this like mentality
Your
in me,
mama
like this
bear instincts.
never, I had this like never give up mentality in me where I'm like, I'm not giving up until literally someone tells me I can't do it. And if there's a chance for me to do it, like I'm going to do it. And he was like totally supportive. And so I waited another month, and these months through this process, by the way, like take forever, I feel like years. But waited the next month, which was March now, the beginning of March. And
And you got
we
pregnant.
yeah, and this is the crazy thing. We had two left. And so they take both of them out of the freezer. So they always take out one more than what you're going to transfer. Um, just in case the other one doesn't make it, because a lot of times in the thawing process, one will not make it. And so we decided to only transfer one, but they took out two in case one didn't make the thawing. And when we got there for our appointment, they said, we have one, and the other one didn't make the thawing process. So it was literally our last chance. We had one left. And my heart was like pounding because I'm like, this is the last chance. Like, this doesn't happen. You don't, like, you have to start from square one again. And yeah, it like did it and worked. And we did a pregnancy test. So ironically, COVID happened 2 weeks after, like the shutdown happened 2 weeks after that appointment, and the league got shut down. So I took a test, and 2 days later, we were on a plane back to Canada. So it was like exact same situation what happened with Leon. It was pretty crazy. But the timing of it was like pretty crazy too. Just with if we would have waited any longer, who knows what would have happened, right? Like now we're living in these COVID days, and there's so much uncertainty. So yeah, that last one was my little Deacon, and both my boys are such miracle babies.
Little
So
Tiki. And
yeah,
they're so, that's what we call our dog.
yeah, we call him
Tiki.
Tiki too. Yeah.
It's just so cute because like, I mean, obviously we follow each other on Instagram, but I just love seeing like their little bond. And I don't know, they're so cute. First of all, they're
Thank you.
adorable. And like just
Thank
seeing them
you.
interact and just like hearing your story and just like even listening now, it just like, it makes everything so much more special. And I just like, obviously it's very personal, and it's hard to share, like especially on a podcast, like to open up and share this, but it's amazing because you are really helping so many people by sharing this. Like you really are. Like people tune in and listen to this, and they're either, going through this, might go through this, they're curious, maybe it's something that they've been thinking about, or maybe it's someone that wants to support a friend going through this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. If this would have come up 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. It's been a little bit of a journey for me to be able to like open up about it. But the more time that goes on, and the more conversations that are had about everything from infertility to miscarriages, all those subjects, how important it is. And I know like we've been saying this, like this has come up more, how we need to talk about it.
Totally.
Just because there's not, if you don't get the opportunity to talk about it, like it's not only part of like the healing process for someone like me, but those two girls that were with me along the journey who went through it, if they didn't share their story with me, I wouldn't have had their support. And they literally like saved me during my time. So I I want to be that person for other people, that if you just need to like talk or you have questions, like what better way to find out things than through someone who's been through it? Do you know what I mean?
100%.
And like even especially overseas, because you right away think, well, I'm in a different country, that door's closed, like I'm not doing that, like I don't live at home, it's out of my comfort zone, like that's just not going to happen. And if I had that mentality, I wouldn't have my boys right now. And so I think that it's just so important to educate each other. Even like something like the ICSI process. I was like not familiar with that process whatsoever before I had kids. And that really like opened my eyes to people that go through that. Just like so many things I learned along the way. And at the end of the day, it's not something we should be ashamed about either. You know what I mean? Like we need to be like proud of our story and proud of our journey and where it's brought us and how much we've grown because of it. And I have like such an appreciation for my kids. Like sometimes I look at my boys and I'm like in my living room with my husband and my kids, and I like see my two boys, and I literally don't feel like, I feel like I'm not living in the real world. I just like, there were so many moments in my life where I never thought that I would have my own kids, that I just thought it was not a reality for me. And to like look at my kids, and sometimes I like look at Leon and I see myself, or like I look at Deacon. So many people think Deacon looks like my dad. It's so cute. But I look at my kids and I'm like, this is like beyond what I ever had like hoped and prayed for. And now it's real. Like I need to pinch myself and be like, Jamie, you're living, this is the real world. You're not in a dream. And I feel bad about it sometimes because I feel like guilty that I'm not like being in the present moment, realizing that this is real life. It's so hard to explain. I don't know how to explain it.
That
I
honestly makes me so happy. Like just as you were saying that, I just had like the like biggest smile on my face. That's just so sweet. And you're absorbing it. Like you are literally soaking in every minute. And I just feel like it just makes like your journey like so much more like your journey is essentially what brought you your boys at the time that it did.
Exactly. And I like cannot say it enough about Spencer as well. Like being a dad, he is literally, and I am not just saying this because he's my husband, he is literally the most hands-on. And you can ask my sister's husband, say it all the time, that, and my brother says it all the time too. Like he is literally the most hands-on dad that you have ever met. It just like warms your heart, and it like warms my heart every day that I see him with the boys and they're just like playing together all the time. There's like not a minute that he doesn't have his attention on the kids. And he says to me like, Jamie, Leon is literally my best friend.
Oh
it's so cute. He's
so
like such like a change. He's changed person in the sense where like he lives and breathes those two boys. And I could not have asked for like a better dad. And I like truly, I'm a very like say it as it is person. And it is like literally truth to all of that. He is unbelievable. He puts me to shame. Let's just say
you're
that.
not too bad yourself, but yeah, I mean, it is like so sweet when you see like your partner become a dad. Like it's just like, I don't know, there's something about just like when your kid comes in the room and you just like see your partner light up when they see them, you're just like, oh my gosh, like the boy, I mean, I'm so biased, right? Like we both have boys. So we're like the boy dad, like connection, but it's just like a dad and like his little boys. Like, that's just like this, it's so like powerful. I don't know. It's amazing he just sounds like such a great person, your husband, and just the fact that you guys could be so supportive towards each other and really bring each other out of such a dark place, and just, makes you appreciate everything that you have now. And I wanted to
Oh,
ask you
totally.
too, what
Yeah.
advice would you give to other women that are going through IVF, or it might be like something that is happening for them in the future?
Yeah. So, and I know I've said it so many times while we've been talking, but like literally never give up. Like this is what like your heart desires. This is what you want. Don't give up. Like unless there is a legit roadblock and something that's completely preventing you from being able to move forward, like keep trying. When Deacon was a newborn, my friend took these beautiful pictures of the boys together, and ironically on the back of Spencer's jersey, at the not just his jersey, his team's jersey, at the very top it says never give up. And she put this jersey on Deacon, and at the top it says like never give up, and it's like laying on him. And then Leon, I'm looking at the picture right now actually, Leon's in the back and he's looking at the camera, and Deacon's sleeping in this basket. And it literally just describes my story in that photo. It describes my story in that photo. And to like, both of my boys were born where we live right now, and to have that on the back of Spencer's jersey, it's like just like so meant to be. And I just like live by that in this situation for the people that are going down this journey. Like never give up is like the biggest thing to do. Modern day medicine is like so amazing what it can do.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I know sometimes you're in a city that doesn't have like access to like a clinic or whatnot, but just do your research and like just try to open as many doors as you can to make it happen. So that would definitely be one of the things that I would say, because there were so many times in my journey where I thought the door was closed in my face, and I was like, nope, I'm going over there and I'm opening back up again.
Yeah.
Like everything from the timing and the hockey season, like living overseas, the language barrier, like being at so many appointments by myself and having like the girl drive me home after I've been under anesthetic, like, you know what I mean? And just like a lot of hurdles, but like you can do it. And also I would say like talk to someone who's been through it, can like be there to help you along the way, to answer questions, to be your support system. With those two friends that I have that like helped me through that. Definitely, I don't know what I would have done without them. They were amazing to me. So if you don't know someone, I know there's like groups on Facebook or like online groups through fertility clinics, or like people can reach out to me, obviously, like anything, just to like have that support system from people. Because no matter, like I could talk to my sisters until I go blue in the face about it, but if they haven't been through the procedures and like the roller coaster, yes, they can support me, they can like hold my hand through it all, but like the understanding is completely different. You know what I mean? So that was a huge help. I would tell people to try to find people that they can lean on for that. I think that would be probably my biggest words of wisdom I would pass on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And again, I just want to thank you for coming on here, because like you said, it's like, you could be living overseas if you're listening, you could be living in North America, but I think what obviously connects all of us is like that we're all, unless you're listening as like a friend or family, maybe of you, or just like someone that just likes to listen to the podcast. I mean, that's totally possible too, but like the majority of people listening are significant others of hockey players. And I think like that's what all connects us all. And so I think it's so important that people in this lifestyle are sharing their stories, because whether you live in Europe, whether you live in North America, like our lifestyles are crazy. Like we don't live in one place of the year, right? Like we're constantly moving, we're constantly doing this or that. And so I think just like having strong women like yourself, like coming on here and sharing your journey and podcast, like helps other people following in like these potential footsteps just feel so much more like validated in their journeys. So thank you again for coming on and just being really open and sharing with me.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I would be glad to support anyone through any journey that they're going through. And that's what we're here for, like you said, to support each other. So thank you so much for talking to me.
Of course.